Welcome back. You're tuned into this special edition of Future Female Forward, and we have special guests with us who are talking about everything sustainability, the role of women in sustainability, and they themselves have achieved a lot in this field as well. Continuing our conversation, Ms. Jain, let me come to you. I was just discussing what policies could be done by the government. We spoke about that, but going forward, in COP this year, what are the key expectations that you have, and what do you think should the focal point be?
So, I'd like to take a moment, Sonal, on a conversation we were having about financing. And I had 2 points, and I'll come to COP28 thereafter. 2 points on that I had is that anything related to sustainability in terms of solutions, in terms of technologies, in terms of, assets that are created, I think could well be treated the way we treat financing for startups, because often these technologies need to be tested, often these solutions need to be tried, and then one gets a comfort level in terms of its commercial viability and commercial expansion. So it will be a good approach to look at financing for sustainability solutions the way we look at financing for startups. That's one point I wanted to make. And the other thought is that, again, countries like ours, for example, and which is applicable for, again, startups and finding technological solutions, innovative solutions to the problems that exist, we could be the birthplace for the solutions and for the piloting, and we can take them to the rest of the world for expansion. That would cause, hopefully, finance to flow from that part of the world, from the north part of the world, which is much better provided, already has probably impacted the sustainability in terms of their own growth journeys, and need to participate in the growth journeys that countries like ours have, for example. So coming to COP28, I think this is going to be a marker event, because we are going to be, for the first time, taking stock. There is a stock take expected to happen with respect to the 2030 goals. So it's a good time to put a peg into pitch why the involvement of half the community in the world in terms of grassroots, as I said, in terms of decision making, in terms of policy formulation, in terms of empowerment, in terms of financing, needs to be staked into the ground. I sincerely believe that this is an opportunity to make the point that without half of the world, you're not really going to get where you want to get in 2030 or before or after.
Okay, so more action required in that space. We take that point. Ms. Sharma, let me come to you then. First, from a corporate perspective, what do you think should we be looking at in terms of COP28? And taking that discussion on climate finance itself forward, do you think industry would be interested in financing some of these climate startups, or, be an incubator here, and ensure that, okay, if there are some people or some sections of the society going ahead with this idea of starting something for climate change, the industry would support that?
Thanks. I'll take the finance part first and then come to the COP part. So I think just continuing what Ms. Kalpana said, that I think finance is required for anything, whether it is a new technology or even accelerating whatever are the known technologies. Because, in India especially, while in EU or in the developed economies, there are mechanisms of carbon trading mechanisms, which kind of creates a level playing field, incentivizes people to invest in these new technologies. In India, as of now, beyond PAT, of course, there's a talk of carbon credit now coming. But truly speaking, whatever has happened is more from a voluntary perspective, and to largely see where there is also an economic sense. So whether it's an adoption of renewable energy, or, or if it is whether we call about plastic, then there's an EPR, which is actually accelerating the whole process. So I think, first of all, there needs to be a lot of policies, enablement for acceleration of technology, which is already available, and also adoption of some newer age technologies like hydrogen or carbon capture or storage. So otherwise, it's not a level playing field. You can't, as one single player producing, just bring into market something. You may do a pilot, but you'll never scale it up. You'll wait for a right time, because, a business is there to make profits also. So I think a lot needs to be done, in fact, of putting the things right in terms of perspectives, or it could even be some green buying incentives, which could be there, right? So that it incentivizes the large organizations to put in their more stake in terms of what they believe. It's not the belief, it's actually they have to also look at all stakeholders, investors, including. So that's where I think the main gap is. In terms of COP, I think what got seeded last year, which is on the whole climate justice piece, the loss and damage fund, which was agreed to be created. I personally, that's my hope and belief that it gets rectified, a structure takes in place, so that before it's too late, there is a funding by the global north and the global south on those adaptation, because adaptation measures are much more expensive than actually the decarbonization measures. The other expectation that I have from this COP is that there was initial talks on the food security, because probably we have not understood, but food security is going to be a serious outcome of this whole climate change, which is happening at a much more accelerated pace. India as a most populous nation, also granary for the world, and even meeting the needs of its own country, I think we need to be very seriously thinking about food security. And I hope there was a talk, and I hope in this COP there's a talk about food security and something, concrete as a policy action happens from this COP.
Oh, yes, that's right, because food security is not a term we use very often with climate change. Of course, in other macros, it's very important, but important take note of that as well. We are very short on time, so I would quickly like to come to all of you. Ms. Khandelwal, first up to you. First thing, what is the idea around greenwashing and greenflation, both of them? Because we are talking about women being impacted the most by climate change, but most of the times they're not even aware. And we have a lot of brands talking about steps that they are taking. Do you think that also needs to be curbed in order to ensure that the sect of the society or any section knows what really climate change is and there's not greenwashing in the policy making?
No, absolutely. I think there needs to be a lot of work done both on generating awareness of what climate change is, what it impacts are, what the various stakeholders are doing, including industry, financiers, etc. And also have a key focus on climate communications, right? How do we get the message across in a very simple manner? Because this seems it is a complex topic, and we need to ensure that it reaches the masses, it reaches the most vulnerable population who will be impacted. So there has to be a lot of focus on education and awareness and communication through various media to ensure that we unpack this complex issue and prevent greenwashing from actually happening.
This has been such an interesting conversation. I did have a lot of questions, but we are completely out of time on this edition of Future Female Forward. Ms. Sharma, Ms. Khandelwal and Ms. Jain, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for putting light on what the situation is when it comes to women in sustainability, what the impact is, and what could be done across the globe. Thanks a lot for joining us.